Hello everybody, welcome back to Cheap Comic Collector. This is number 260. Let's see, when you're watching this, it'll be March 1st. So happy March, everybody. Hope you made it through the winter okay. Heading into spring soon. You're in the final stretch. I'm in Florida, so, winter doesn't mean a whole lot to me. We'll get down in the 30s for a few days, usually in January or February. That's about it. Anyway, today we are taking a look at stuff I've read. I've been reading quite a few issues lately. And so we're getting caught up on some of those reviews. And this is Fantastic Four: The Lost Adventure by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So what this does is it represents a story kind of that was originally printed in Fantastic Four 108. But originally there was an original version that Jack Kirby went ahead and drew up. And basically Stan Lee said it didn't work as is. They made him change it. They made him rewrite it. So this presents the original version as Jack Kirby drew it. With Stan Lee coming in and writing it, and Joe Sinnott coming in and redoing the inks and so forth to represent the story, because it's never been presented before as it was originally done. And then in the back they actually show the original printing from Fantastic Four 108, so you can see how the story was reworked, how Stan Lee reworked the story, They made Jack Kirby redraw some stuff. And so this is the first time it's been seen like this. And it's interesting. It works. It's a good story. It's got the great Jack Kirby art in it. But it doesn't quite feel like a Fantastic Four story. It feels kind of like a one-off of a monster story that just happens to have the Fantastic Four story. Even though there's no monster, it's just this bad guy that they're fighting. And so it's interesting because there's a little more personal interactions in this one, but the story doesn't quite click. There's some things in it that don't quite make sense, that are kind of hard to follow in a couple of spots, and because it doesn't, it jumps in logic without explaining it. There's a couple points where Reed Richards seems to instinctively know what's going on when there's been no reason for him to know what's going on. So not a bad story, great Jack Kirby art. And then you have an article explaining the whole process, what's going on. You've got some of Jack Kirby's original art pages, along with the notes and stuff as they were shown. So you get a look at his original pencils and things, which is pretty cool. And then it gets to, it reprints the cover of Fantastic Four 108. And then it gets into the story as it was actually done by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Joe Sinnott. This is the version that was published back in Fantastic Four 108. So you can compare like this story to this story, because it basically tells the same story, but they've changed the beginning, they've changed the ending, they've switched some things around, and this is a much better dynamic story. It feels much more like a Fantastic Four story, the way it starts out with them watching a monitor, and some of the panels are the same. They just redid the ending, the original ending. The guy, there's two brothers, and they both survive, and then one gets cured of his paralysis, and then in the rewritten ending, um, there's two brothers, but they're actually the same person that had somehow been split into two. So the one shoots the other one, and then he becomes like the evil version of them. They get blasted into the negative zone, and Annihilus comes up. He's getting access to their headquarters from the negative zone, and very but much more of an ongoing Fantastic Four issue, much more dynamic and action packed. So interesting in the two different styles, with this being basically pretty much strictly Jack Kirby, and then with Stan Lee just filling in the balloons, and then this shows Stan Lee input in reworking the story and making it much more of a Marvel type story for the new Marvel look, whereas this is kind of a throwback to the 50s, just in the style that it's written and done. So if it very much, it kind of allows you to see Stan Lee's input into the process, and so very, very interesting, as it showcases that, so you can see the difference between basically strictly Jack Kirby and then Jack Kirby with Stan Lee's input on the story. So I found that interesting. Very much, a lot of people say that Stan Lee stole all the credit, and I don't really feel that way. Anything I've ever seen from Stan Lee, he's credited Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and the other creators, and maybe that wasn't put out there enough in the 60s, but that was very much a time period where that wasn't done. Same thing with the Disney company. Walt Disney took all the credit. He didn't do anything except run the company. He started it obviously, but he was the face of the company, just like Stan Lee was the face of Marvel. So, but this actually shows the difference, and of course it's evident in Jack Kirby's later work for DC and Marvel, that he definitely benefited by having a writer and somebody that could kind of rein him in for the purpose of story rather than just giving him a free hand. Not that Jack Kirby wasn't a genius at what he did. I mean, the guy, we probably, we wouldn't have half the characters we do today in comics without Jack Kirby having created or co-created them. But to say it was all Jack Kirby or all Stan Lee is simply not true either way. So next up, we got GI Combat. This is the first issue from the later series from the new 52. This was from 2012. So you got this great dinosaur cover. And you got two stories in here. You have The War That Time Forgot and Unknown Soldier. So The War That Time Forgot, it's pretty cool. It's the art style is a little bit different. And it's got basically a team of Marines or soldiers, what have you, special ops team going into a zone where they don't know what they're going to confront, and they get attacked by pterodactyls. You can see this art here, how fantastic this is. J.T. Kroll was the writer, Ariel Olivetti was the artist, and just can't say enough about the art. The dinosaurs are fantastic in this. little light on story, but it does give you some background info with the soldiers talking to their wives over the computer at the beginning, and and then they crash land on the island, and they come across all these dinosaurs, and there's apparently I don't know what tanks those are, if those are Chinese or Russian or what they're supposed to be. Um, but the dinosaurs in here just look fantastic. So very cool, but very short. It's only half the issue because unknown soldiers in the other half of the issue. Not really enough meat there to make me happy. It should have. I felt like both of these features would have benefited by having an entire issue to themselves, or even just been a one shot. The War That Time Forgot as a complete story. This would have been fantastic as a graphic album. Unknown Soldier by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti as the writers, Don Panosian as the artist. And this was okay. It wasn't really a story that appealed to me too much. It's basically an origin story of the unknown soldier. Jumps around a little bit, but it jumps into the government basically is recruiting him as an agent for the government. But it jumps back. It tells about his family being killed and how he gets trained, and he just goes in and he just wants to basically kill the people that are responsible for killing his family. And then he ends up getting basically it looks like he's going to be recruited by the government, but it's continued in the next issues. So good stuff. Both stories are decent. I like the War That Time Forgot a lot more. I think there was a lot more potential there, whereas the Unknown Soldier is just kind of I don't know, felt a lot like the Punisher, where I lost my family, so I'm going to kill everybody, and but good stuff. But like I said, I felt that both stories were too short, and that's probably a good thing. I guess that means I liked them because I wanted to see more. But both would have benefited from being longer, having more pages. And then from 2014, we have Captain America: Homecoming #1. This was a one shot that they basically published to cash in on the movie. They wanted to tie in, have stuff for sale when the movie came out. The Captain America and the Winter Soldier in this case. Got a big ad here for mentions it on the cover. You got the big ad with Captain America and Black Widow. And this is actually a Captain America and Black Widow story. They're in Brooklyn, where Captain America grew up, sharing a milkshake. And apparently they're there because there's terrorists going to kidnap somebody. But Captain America spends a lot of time reminiscing about his childhood and the neighborhood he grew up in. And then it's pretty much a straightforward action movie done in kind of a cartoon style. So I wasn't real crazy about the art. It's an okay story. It's just a one-off. There's nothing. Like I said, it's just kind of there to take advantage of the movie. There's nothing. I don't know. There's not really any reason for this to exist as a one-shot, I guess. And then to fill out the issue, they've reprinted Captain America 117, which introduced the Falcon by Stan Lee and Gene Colan, with inks by Joe Sinnott. And so in this story, this is a continuation of a previous story. Captain America is in Red Skull's body. Red Skull's in Captain America's body. And like I said, he meets the Falcon for the first time and convinces him to don a costume and become the Falcon, basically. And which I didn't know this was like, I guess I'd never heard about the introduction of the Falcon before. I always thought he was a school teacher in Harlem. So that's different. because they're actually in, I don't know, some exotic locale in an island or something. But yeah, it's not terrible. It just doesn't have a reason to exist other than to take advantage of the movie, basically. And then we have the new Green Lantern series. So this just started last year. I think it's up to issue 8 currently. This is from 2023. And it's Green Lantern coming back to Earth. Hal Jordan, the real Green Lantern, coming back to Earth. And it's got him basically kind of trying to not really force his attentions on Carol Ferris, because that would that suggests, like, being forceful, but he's there. It's very awkward. it's awkward for them, and it's awkward to read. But anyway, Sinestro makes a little appearance here in the bar. And he's stuck on Earth. He can't leave. The new, I don't know the current status of everything, but apparently the Guardians of the Universe have left something else in charge. The United Planets is in charge. They've quarantined the planet, and he fights a minor villain, and he's able to create a new ring for himself out of a Manhunter costume. And then there's an old backup story with John, or not an old backup story, a backup story with John Stewart. And then there's another one that didn't make much sense to me. The main focus is the Hal Jordan stories. And then we have issue number 2. And I was going to go through this one. And suffice to say, but I got to go. My mom's calling me. So suffice to say, this was good. I went online. I read the rest of the series. It's a really good series. I suggest you read it if you like Hal Jordan. It's really good. Green Lantern, probably my favorite of these. GI Combat was good, but too short. This one was the worst of the bunch, and Fantastic Four was interesting because of the historical aspect. So, thanks for watching, everybody. We will see you tomorrow.